Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the July 31st, 2023 ZBA hearing. I'll take a roll call. I'm Audrey Klein, the chairman, Suzanne Ryan, vice chair, Sarah Silk, clerk, Luke Freudenberg, member, Chuck Sumner, member, alternate Sabette Stroman, and alternate Kate McMahon. I just want to read through the standard rules for the public hearing for everybody. First, the clerk will read the notice and report on how the public notice and personal notice was given. Any board member needing to recuse themselves will do so. Alternates will be seated if necessary. A quorum of the board is 3 voting members. A full board is 5 voting members. And if after seating available alternates, the board is not full, the applicant will be given the opportunity to continue their hearing to a time, place certain, or having their case heard with a short board, which thereafter cannot be used as a reason for a rehearing. We'll have the applicant, we'll open the public hearing, the applicant will present their case. The board members will ask questions and discuss the case with the applicant. We'll invite the members of the public to speak, first in favor, then opposed, and then anybody who would just like to talk. If you do come to the microphone to talk, please identify yourself, your name, and that you live in Wolfeboro or not. Address all comments and questions through the chair. Do not deliberate directly with other attendees in the room. Please contain your input to the criteria used by the board in evaluating applications. The ZBA is tasked with hearing 4 distinct appeal types, each with specific evaluation processes dictated by state law. I will explain each type of appeal as it comes forth. We want to hear from you, and when possible, please refrain from extensively duplicating talking points that have already been made by other speakers. After hearing public comments, we will close the public hearing, deliberate amongst the board members only, and in many cases, make a decision the same night. So at this point, I'd like to ask Sarah to read the notice.
EAC LLC, care of Hunters Shop and Save / Sawyer LLC, 50 and 60 South Main Street, tax map and lot 217-58-59, case number 05-SE-2023, for a special exception for up to 25% expansion for non-conforming structure 175-43A1C.
Would you report on the site visit, please?
Yes, there was a site visit this evening at 6:15. Present from the board was Suzanne, myself, Audrey, Kate, Sabette, and Chuck. Also present were Perry Shaw, Senior and Junior, Sam Adams, Mark Bullock, and Randy Tetro. There was discussion about the white building coming down at the rear of the lot. There was a demonstration of the grade difference, especially at the back of the building. Drainage system will be in the front corner. School Street level has a pitch to it, and there will be a vortex filtration system, all regarding the drainage. July 11th Planning Board site plan, it's the same. Don Volt's records were found and corners located, so it was a great assistance to get some work done before they even went to the Planning Board. And there was reference to ADA grades and it being 1.5 feet lower due to necessity. Those are the details discussed.
Thank you. Per the future land use goal in the 2019 Wolfeboro Master Plan, providing education on the process of the Zoning Board of Adjustment within the context of state statutes and local ordinance is a desirable goal. And to that end, let me just read a short paragraph about what a special exception is. As I mentioned, there's 4 different processes that we can hear. They each have different standards of review. This is a special exception to the terms of the ordinance. A specific permitted land use that is allowed when clearly defined criteria and conditions contained in the ordinance are met. Providing for special exceptions makes it possible to allow uses where they are reasonable in a uniform and controlled manner, but to prohibit them where the specific conditions cannot be met. Requirements in this sense are measurable qualifications that are the same at all times and places and can be expressed in specific terms. In the case of a request for a special exception, the ZBA may not vary or waive any of the requirements set forth in the ordinance. All special exceptions shall be made in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. So what we do is, what does the board do? We collect evidence and determine the facts. We apply the legal tests to the information that we found. We develop a record for court review. We make a finding of facts, and we make a decision. And that's basically our process. Is there any member who would need to disqualify themselves on this case?
Madam Chair, I have just a quick question about whether one of our members should step down. I have a copy of a statement by the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen noting that they would not grant municipal estoppel as outlined in Condition 5 of the Wolfeboro Planning Board. Hunters Shop and Save will seek approval for the special exception by the Wolfeboro Zoning Board of Adjustment on July 31st, 2023.
Sarah, could you go a little closer and a little slower? Yep, thank you.
It was a statement from the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen, and the minutes of their public meeting and when they went into non-public and then when they talked to attorney, but then they came back out, showed that Luke was present at all of those occasions, and there was a certain amount of judgment being made to make that decision. And I also have the planning board minutes from Tuesday, July 11th. And if you refer to page 8 and 9 in those minutes, you will see that as a member of the ZBA, although he said he was not testifying as such, he did make a lot of judgmental calls about this application. And I know I probably sound like the ethics conscience for the ZBA, but I'm always trying to make sure that when we do our deliberations, we are above reproach. I did not sit in the last couple of meetings because I felt I had a reason to have a conflict of interest, and I know I have been very conscientious about making sure that our board followed all of our crossing of T's and dotting of I's when our chair had an item before us. So with an abundance of caution, I would just suggest that perhaps he should step down because of the appearance of a conflict.
Is that a motion? Well, I'd like to hear what Luke has to say before.
Well, I appreciate your comments, Sarah, and all those things are true. It did become before the Board of Selectmen after the planning board attorney advised the planning board that the potential for municipal estoppel was available potentially to the Board of Selectmen. I personally found that at that meeting that information wasn't poor in judgment. It was not sound in legal advice. It did a disservice to both the planning board members and the Board of Selectmen. Case law on that is very clear, and municipal estoppel has never been used in that approach. So on that, in that realm, I believe that I did what was right for the town of Wolfeboro, as I always do. I have no vested interest in any of these matters that are before the hearing tonight. But I would like to bring up a couple other things. And I agree, people make statements about cases, in the public, and, I think when you look at things like this, we live in a small town. For instance, the chairwoman made a comment on Facebook saying that please correct me if I'm wrong with the terminology, but that when it came to a project such as this, a developer should plan on spending 12 to 18 months in the planning and review process, and they should be capable of having the financial resources available to produce such a thing. And in my mind, if my comments were benign about a large subject and about what the zoning board really should be hearing and what it should be hearing, in my opinion, as a citizen, and what the Board of Selectmen should be hearing and shouldn't be hearing as a citizen, that comment actually deals with a specific part of this case. Further, Suzanne Ryan, got up after me at that planning board meeting and also made comments regards to me and my character. So, if I'm getting called out, and I fully admit to what I said, I support what I said, I still believe what I said, I'd say it again, I'd say it probably even tonight. I mean, there are powerful forces at work in this town that hide behind a cloak and use other groups to facilitate their information and their agenda. Some of them are sitting in the audience here tonight, and it's embarrassing because, once again, we have applicants that come before these boards time and time again, and we sit here as members of the town of Wolfeboro to do things in an ethical and expedited way. That's all I've ever tried to do. I'd hoped the planning board that night would have taken that fifth exception out. They wiggled and wobbled at the end because they were thinking about it. My statement calling the board incapable of hearing it is parred with the planning board's basic entire case that they said. They basically laid it out so that the Board of Selectmen could step in with estoppel and completely remove the zoning board from the process. So there's a lot going on, So I would be happy to step down if the other two members would step down and let the four remaining members hear this case clearly, cleanly, and there'll be everyone's made public statements. The three of us have all made public statements. So I'll step down if the other two will step down.
I think, with all due respect, Madam Chair, that the difference here is that I do have the minutes, and it shows that Suzanne Ryan asked a technical question relevant to the plan before the planning board and whatnot. She made absolutely no comments relative to whether the plan should be approved or not, and any personal comments about Luke are not pertinent to this decision that we're making tonight.
So I actually did hear almost all of the testimony at the planning board hearing, including Suzanne's questions about technical aspects of the project, and I don't feel like there was any kind of judgment as to whether or not it applied to this special exception hearing. They were questions similar to everybody else's in the audience. So as far as, may I finish?
The technical question, to answer just about, had to do with a drive-through pickup window.
Well, I think Suzanne
Which
asked
is
a
not
number of
even on-
questions, which I actually appreciate. She's in the audience asking questions that are very relevant. As to what I said, and I was trying to find it here, but Luke, when I said 12 to 18 months, I was talking about the entire project, not the planning process. I was talking about construction and everything. And that was related to their desire to get up by spring of 2024. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking that was really a difficult time frame. So I don't believe my comment has any effect on whether I think the special exception criteria are met or not. I haven't heard the case yet. So I do not feel as if I will volunteer to recuse myself. Would anybody else like to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to this.
Okay.
The difference is in asking a question as to making a judgment or perceived as making a judgment, which Luke did. He was basically saying, planning board, just approve it, and it shouldn't go to the ZBA because they're, whatever it was, the incompetent or something, didn't have the capability to sit. Besides being thrown under the bus, I think the thing of it is the analogy that you gave that the federal government can come in and it took me a couple days to figure that out. That was like a mind bender. But it was like the federal government can come in a catastrophe and they don't have to follow regulations, and the town can come and do abbreviated formats, and they don't have to really go through the whole scenario. So just approve it and send it over to the, just approve it tonight and be done with it. Don't send it to the ZBA. And at that point, that estoppel thing hadn't come up. So the impression that I got from what you said is just approve it tonight. And that was, you're not one that is pro land use and pro zoning. And I think your personal record shows that. But I think that legally, do you have to step down? No. Can we make you step down? No. Should you step down? Yes, because as the selectman, you went on further to make another decision about the estoppel. And I would bet 10 to 1 you voted not to send it over here. I bet that vote was 3 to 2.
We don't want to know
one
what
of the ones that voted no.
We don't want to know what the vote was, that
Okay,
he's not
so-
supposed to be disclosing
So
that.
are you making a motion? or
So,
do you
no,
want-
Suzanne, are you done making your point?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Luke, I want to ask you, so part of what the board does, like I read before, is we collect evidence, we make decision based on the facts. It appears as if you've already made up your mind. So my question is, if you hear facts that you didn't know before, are you capable of changing your mind? Or have you already decided that that you're going to vote to approve this, pretty much regardless?
Well, I'm not going to say how I would vote or not vote on this particular issue because that would be unethical. I do support the grocery store. I do support this plan. I've reviewed it extensively. We have not gone through the findings of fact as of yet. I believe that I literally have zero vested interest in this other than being from the town of Wolfeboro and caring greatly about the people and its residents and its businesses. And yes, I can always be impartial.
So when you said that, the government should just get out of the way, that's not like a blanket statement that
I said I
makes it-
think sometimes what government should do is just get out of the way. Yes, I truly believe that. I believe we boggle some of these cases down in minutia. We cost people tens of thousands of dollars
I'm not
in
done.
time and in coming back and forth for more and more and more meetings. I personally think it's embarrassing for the town, and I want to see us process cases faster. I want to see us, do what's right by the people of this town, and I don't want to see interest groups, and I don't think it happens here, but it certainly happens on other boards. There are powerful interest groups in this town, and individuals that put a lot of pressure on these boards and hold up a lot of these cases, and a lot of time is spent, and a lot of effort, and lawyers, and engineers, and meetings that we have to sit through, and it's embarrassing.
So
And
I guess
personally, I'm tired of it. So I am going to sit tonight. So you guys can vote to say I shouldn't sit, but I'm going to sit. I'm going to sit for my town, and I'm going to sit for the people of Wolfeboro, and I can hear this case impartially.
So I guess what I want to point out, I think it's kind of ironic because you do feel so strongly that these processes should move along quickly, that no matter what the decision is tonight, the position you've taken leaves us really open for appeal. And that's going to push it out another 30 days, 90 days, and that's you getting in the way. I just want to point that out. Anybody else?
I'd just like to respond to something he said. When he talks about what's right for the people of the town voted in these zoning ordinances. We're talking about the majority of the voters. And to be fair to them, as well as one applicant, we need to make certain that the process is above reproach. If you are so embarrassed by being on that board, would you like to put in your resignation? I'm never embarrassed to represent what the voters voted for.
Anybody else? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I don't think there's a motion to be made here. I think all 5 people seated on the board tonight are capable of making a good decision, and I'd just like to move on.
So generally, and we've done this a number of times before, if somebody wants to make a motion to take a non-binding vote, that's what happens.
Okay.
It's not binding.
Okay,
Well, I think
It's
I think
just
in the
important to me.
It's just
past,
formal.
when I recused myself, I think in the past you guys voted, and then I voted too, whether I would recuse myself, I believe. Or you,
It's always the member's decision.
decision.
So.
No matter
And
what we
it's,
say.
and it's
Luke's
only the
decision.
board that can do it, the public can't do it. And
Right.
so I'm going to make a motion that,
I already made the motion.
you didn't make a motion.
I did make the motion.
Nobody heard it.
The motion was to have him step down, and then Suzanne said, "Is that a motion?" I said, "Yes."
Okay, then I'll second it.
And we can take the motion, we can take the vote. He can refuse to step down, but at least we're on the record at trying to make this a less appealable meeting.
Which is consistent with our actions in the past, extremely
It
consistent.
is indeed.
So, Luke? Motion's been made. Do you vote to step down?
We need a second. Suzanne, did you?
Suzanne's
I
second.
second it.
No.
Sarah?
I think he should step down, obviously.
I would say I've been on both ends of this situation, where I've been asked to step down and have been asked to step down and have not. It's a matter of what you think is in the best interest of the outcome and in your conscience. And I begin to wonder. So, yes.
I think it's not a good idea for Luke to sit just from a formal legal standpoint, but I'm going to recuse myself and not vote.
I vote no.
So, sorry.
You know, I don't want to make this a, in the end, it alleviates that responsibility, then I believe this board can make the right decision tonight, and I believe they will, so I will step down.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
Kate, it's your turn to sit as a voting member, if you're willing, okay? Just make sure to pull down your microphone when you speak. Okay?
Yeah,
Yes.
no, just before you go into your usual presentation about the applicant coming forward.
I already did that, so
Okay.
I'm a,
All right, well, then there's a couple of things I would like to address to the public, and maybe some of the board members are not abreast of what's happened, but it's kind of fill in the gaps. On the 11th of, what was it, July, the planning board had its final site plan review, and at that meeting came up the issue of should it go to the ZBA for special exception or not. And they had an attorney there that advised them you could do 3 or 4 different steps. The planning board decided they would ship it over to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen on 7/13 had a special non-meeting with their attorney to determine whether they would or they would not do the route in court through through estoppel. So the public didn't get to see that. And so the board, what I'm trying to convey is the Board of Selectmen determined, yes, in fact, we're not going to send it to court for their various reasons upon their attorney's advice. In fact, it's online if you want to see the whole description of what they did and what they said as to why it's here tonight. And the public was kind of out of the loop on what transpired. So that's the basis of how they got here. We got here.
So you're making the point that it's not this board that decides whether it comes here or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'd also like to say that was a big emphasis made in a negative way about oh, how long it took to get through the process. Oh, it's been dragging on, or there was negative comment. Well, I would only say that I didn't hear the applicant complain. I didn't hear the engineers complain. I heard just unverified discussion and negative comments from people. But it was a normal sequence of events that happened. And the engineer kindly put out a timeline for what happened. And they couldn't even start work until the fire marshal finished, until the site was able to be managed. And the process is they have to go to technical review committee first. They have an option to go to the planning board for informal applications, which is to their benefit and the planning board's benefit and the public's benefit, because you get to hear the process as it's going along. And so they did a couple of conceptual plans and preliminary plans, and out of that came a lot of good stuff. And personally, I think out of that, two things are the best things that happened. One was the stormwater drainage, and the other thing was the facade and the appearance of the building, which is subjective, but it was a great improvement. And you're not going to be disappointed because of public comment. But in total, they went to the planning board 7 times, and on the 8th time, their site plan got approved. That's not unusual. That's very typical for a project that is once in a generation. So it's unfortunate that staff felt that they didn't have to come to us for a special exception, but at any rate, they did, and they're here.
May I ask? Because
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
wouldn't it usually come to zoning first before?
It can go either way. It's the applicant's choice.
Okay.
They can do it concurrently as well.
Yes, I'm done. I just wanted
Thank
to
you.
update.
Comments, questions? Oh. Applicant, would you like to step up and,
Well, there's one other thing. There's one other thing.
sorry?
No, you're fine.
You've opened the public hearing, have you? Yeah?
Not technically. I didn't say the public hearing is open.
Well, I think you need to do that.
Okay. Public hearing is open.
The sec-
Applicant can come up to the
The
stand.
second thing is that I'd like to say that the ZBA does take jurisdiction over this application, that they've met the conditions of the checklist, and that they're here under 175-43A1C to allow for a 25% expansion
Of a non-conforming
of a
building.
non-conforming building structure.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, my name's Sam Adams. I'm with Adams and Bullock. Can you hear me?
Yep, you really got to get close to that mic. Might have to move the stand.
Can you hear me now? Sam Adams, Adams and Bullock. I represent EAC LLC and Sawyer LLC. This is my law partner, Mark Bullock, and we'll be going over the points here for the zoning board appeal, or zoning board of adjustment, excuse me, this afternoon, or this evening. Do you want to read your thing?
Good afternoon. Esteemed members of the zoning board, thank you for the opportunity to comment prior to your deliberations on this matter.
Got to get that microphone right in your mouth.
How's that?
It
Okay.
will
Better.
move up. The whole stand will move higher. There you go.
And let us
Can
know
you hear
who
me
you
now?
are. Better. Yep.
My name is Mark Bullock of Adams and
Thank
Bullock,
you.
here on behalf of EAC, the petitioner for the petition in front of the board today. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to comment before your deliberations on this matter. To just outline briefly why we're here today and our position on the matter, and before I turn it back over to Attorney Adams and professionals that will speak much more in detail about things that I cannot, I would like to say that ultimately we are here today because of a very specific interpretation of a zoning regulation. One that is hotly debated. as to the accuracy of the interpretation, the correctness in the drafting of the zoning ordinance, and the conflict with the spirit and intent of itself and other regulations. Let me be clear.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, slower?
Absolutely. We're here today over the interpretation of the zoning board ordinance. Now, I'd like to be clear. I don't agree with the interpretation that was put forward by the planning board, but that's not why we're here today. As is usually common with the law, we're not here to rewrite the law. We're not here to argue about whether or not the apostrophe means one thing or the comma means another. We're here to work with the letter of law that we are given. Today, I've heard a little bit about the zoning board's concerns regarding making a good decision and making a decision that's not going to cause problems down the line. This is wise. If you haven't been advised by your own counsel to do such a thing, it's admirable that you're already thinking of it, because we want these decisions to stand, because the longer that we take in addressing these issues and trying to unwrite decisions that are made and trying to attack the ideas that we've come up with and changed our minds later down the road is really only going to further the dates that this community can get back to healing, can get back to what's normal. As been stated, on July 11th, the Planning Board issued conditions of approval requiring one of three options. One option was a finding of municipal estoppel by the Board of Selectmen. As we've noted, the Board of Selectmen has denied their ability to do such a thing. It's not within their power, as they have been advised by their counsel. Alternatively, the board noted that the court could issue the same ruling. While this is actually technically correct, this is within the court's purview, we're looking at a very extensive timeline, exceeding months, possibly into years with dealing such a matter, especially when it's been so rarely touched on courts of all levels in the state of New Hampshire.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I'm losing your
Municipal
point.
estoppel cannot be addressed by the Board of Selectmen, as they've stated.
Okay.
It can be addressed by the courts, but we're looking at an extensive timeline to do so, which would only delay the rebuilding of this town's grocery store and for the inhabitants to get back to normal. Today, what we're actually here is under the last option, the special exception. This is clearly within this board's power to issue, and is, by my argument, the best option, because it follows not only the letter of your authority, but the letter of the law itself. And as I've said, we're not here to reinterpret the zoning board, the zoning regulations themselves. We're here to follow what we've been given. The ZBA can, if it so chooses, approve this petition in one of two ways. It can approve this, finding that no special exception is needed, stating that the statute does not require such an exception. Personally, I agree with this interpretation. But again, this is a moot opinion, one that does not matter. We've already been told what is required of us, that a special exception is necessary and the only way to move forward. Ignoring that really only opens this up to appeal down the road. Within 30 days, we will see at least one, if not multiple, petitions on appeal, which will, again, just like the court path, extend the dates to which this community can begin to repair itself. Alternatively, what this board can do, and what I encourage it to do heavily, is today unanimously approve the special exception. You may do so in stating that you do not believe the special exception is necessary. However, given the letter of the law and the interpretation and the requirements imposed, you can approve the special exception nonetheless. This is backed by the law. This is backed by interpretation of the law thus far, and arguably, at worst, this is a gray area that needs to be corrected in the law, in perhaps a Scrivener's error, perhaps a drafting error, perhaps something else entirely that I can't come up with, but that is an issue for another time and another date. Today, we're here to interpret what we've been given, what we have, and within the authority and bounds that we have. Not only that, we're here to move this community back towards normal, back towards healing. Thank you.
So generally speaking, do you guys prefer just to go down through the facts that support the requests that are on the application? Okay. So we have fact number 1, site suitability, that the specific site is an appropriate location for the proposed use or structure, which includes adequate usable space, adequate access, and absence of environmental constraints. And do you want me to read at verbatim what is on the application? Okay.
Yeah, it helps for anybody who's watching on TV.
Understood. Thank you. Due to loss by fire, this is a proposed rebuild of an existing local business previously operating in this location for over 70 years. It is a permitted use in the C1 zone and is deemed a pre-existing non-conforming structure because it was not located within 15 feet off the front property street line. For number two, fact number two, immediate neighborhood impact. That the proposal is not detrimental, injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the abutting properties in particular, and to the neighborhood in general. Typical impacts which extend beyond the proposed site include excessive trip generation, noise or vibration, dust, glare of heat, smoke, fumes, gas, or odors, inappropriate hours of operation. The proposed grocery store will be generally located in the same location as the former store. The above-mentioned items A through E were thoroughly discussed with the planning board, town department heads, abutters, and the general public during multiple TRC and planning board meetings. Based on those discussions and approvals, the above-mentioned items were deemed appropriate for the use. Therefore, the proposal is not detrimental, injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the abutting properties. Fact number three, that there will be no undue nuisance or serious hazard to pedestrian or vehicular traffic, including the location and design of access ways and off-street parking. The proposed design, including building location and slightly adjusted on-site parking along and adjacent to the front and side of the main entrance, allow for better ADA access, safer and more efficient truck deliveries, and general vehicular parking. No changes are being proposed to the existing on-street parking. Therefore, there will be no undue nuisance or serious hazard to any pedestrian or vehicular traffic. Fact number four, availability of public services and facilities. That the following services and facilities are available and adequate to serve the needs of the use, designed, and proposed. Sewer, water, stormwater drainage, fire protection, streets, parks, schools. As stated in fact number two, multiple TRC meetings were held with various town department heads to determine utility connection suitability, as well as potential code compliance and other site development impacts. The proposed project is to be connected with new municipal water and sewer lines and electrical connections, utilizing all new associated building amenities. All providing services and facilities are available and adequate to update and serve the needs of the proposed use as designed. Fact number five, appropriateness of site plan. Consideration shall be given to the following. A, parking scheme. B, traffic circulation. C, open space. D, fencing or screening. E, landscaping. F, signage. G, commercial vehicles. H, lighting impact. Items A and B will generally remain consistent with former operations. Items C, D, and E have been addressed by fencing and screening designed to buffer abutting residential uses. A landscaping plan has been provided to enhance the existing minimal landscaping without adversely impacting the existing areas that need to remain. Item F, the existing sign at the entrance will remain. A new sign on the building maintenance entrance is proposed and will meet the sign ordinance. Fact number six, that continues. Item G, commercial vehicles are not parked on site or may be parked in the rear of the building in employee parking if needed. Item H, any new proposed lighting will be compliant with current lighting requirements. Now we're on to fact number six, immediate neighborhood integrity. That the uses and established use patterns will be weighed with recent change trends in the neighborhood. The proposed use is a historically established use in this zone. Adjacent commercial uses and businesses are all in close proximity to, quote, downtown functions and are consistent with the overall zoning ordinance requirements. Number seven, impact on property values. That the proposed use will not cause or contribute to decline in property value of adjacent properties. The proposed building is located in the commercial zone and is therefore an appropriate use and location. The building and area will be screened and buffered to protect any residential uses. The former structure was 6.5 feet from the east property line with no buffer or fence. The new structure will be 5 feet from the east property line with fencing that will provide screening and buffering. The new structure will be up to code and aesthetically pleasing. Therefore, it will not contribute to any decline in property values of adjacent properties. Fact number 8, the proposed use or structure is consistent with the spirit of the ordinance and the intent of the master plan. The existing/proposed commercial use is permitted in the C1 zone and is consistent with all requirements and intent of the subject zone. The site plan review requirements and associated regulations were thoroughly vetted by the planning board and is consistent with the intent and spirit of the town's master plan. And that concludes all of the facts.
I guess I only have a couple of questions, and they're probably for the engineer. So does anybody have a question
No,
about the?
Mine would be the engineer, too.
Okay, Randy.
Thank you. You may be back, but
So as I mentioned in the site review, in the site walk, I have 4 different plans here, 3 of which you have, the existing features plan, and on the back of the 11 by 17s is a proposed plan. Then we were asked to submit an overlay so you could see them on top of each other, which we did submit. Hopefully everybody got it.
I didn't.
And I have the big one here tonight, so you can see it. I'll show it.
I figured it out.
Yeah, and the other plan I have is a copy of the lot line adjustment plan that was approved by the planning board. It's a small lot line adjustment that would need to be associated with this. I think everybody realizes that it was 3 lots originally. The Hunter's lot, small lot on School Street that used to have a house on it, and the Walgreens lot. We went through a lot line adjustment consolidation, which would change slightly the lot line with Hunter's and would combine the Walgreens lot with the small lot on School Street. There was a question about reciprocal easement.
Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Oh,
The reciprocal easements were discussed at the planning board, and obviously they weren't prepared yet because we haven't got final approval. There's existing parking easements, reciprocal easements in place, and in this particular situation, being not normal with regards to, we've already been to the planning board before ZBA, and secondly, that the same owner, the same person owns the 2 entities. I don't think the easement, the possibility of not getting the easement is an issue. So I will answer any questions.
so the easement paperwork hasn't been concluded yet?
The amended easement documents haven't been prepared yet.
I have 2 things, but I'll wait. Do you have?
No, mine is simple.
Okay.
I was at the planning board meeting of 6/6, and it was, I'm a little still confused. Boundary line adjustment, lot line merger.
Yep.
My sense is that you consolidated the back lot with the grocery store and that the Walgreens is separate?
No. Almost.
Almost.
Not quite.
So there was 3 separate lots of record. There was the gravel parking lot in the back that had a house on it originally. There was a separate lot that was Walgreens, the former hardware store, and there was the Hunter's lot.
And can you use the lot number, 57? I know.
So Hunter's is 58, Walgreens is 59, the School Street lot was 60. Okay, so
The grocery store is 58.
So what we did was there was a small, I think it's like 400 and something square feet that we needed, that because of the original property lines, we needed to fit the building in correctly and keep 5 feet on that east side. So that what we did was it was easier to combine the small lot on School Street with Walgreens than it was with the grocery store lot. So that's what we did, knowing that we can have reciprocal easements for the parking and the access and the utilities. So the property lines are somewhat moot. I don't want to make them seem not as important being a surveyor, but in this particular case, in the downtown zones, they tend to be. We just had to make sure that the physical building of the proposed new building of Hunters was on that lot physically. So that's why we had to adjust that line. The white building was a former cleaners. That will have to be raised as a part of this application should it get approved. So,
So are we still left with 3 lots?
2.
2, so 6. So
Both lots at Front School Street.
60 became part of 50?
Yes.
59.
59, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
58.
Yeah. And,
No, 59.
I forget which
59.
one. I forget which one Linda picked, but I think it's 59 ended up being.
Okay.
Yeah, and Hunters will be 58. So this is 1 lot here, 1 lot here now.
Okay. And it's Sawyer on the back too?
Sawyer.
And then it's
EAC.
LLC on the front one?
There's only
And
one
in,
in
wait a
there.
minute, and in essence, it's all owned by one person, but 2 entities?
2 LLCs.
Yeah.
And the reason I mentioned that, and Dan's here, everybody's heard him before, Dan Craffey, he's the owner. Normally, the question would come up about the easements because there'd be 2 separate owners, and did you have permission, did you get an easement?
Yeah.
But in this particular case, it's not relevant insofar as, number one, there's already an existing one that will have to be amended should this get approved. They'll have to have new reciprocal easement documents. And we've tried to stay consistent with the existing Walgreens lease so that we don't have any issues there.
Yeah.
So there will have to be an amended lease as well.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it. I just wanted to get it clarified in my mind.
So it'll be 1 lot in the back, even though there'll be, both people can use it, Walgreens or Hunters. But physically on the lot, it'll be part of the Walgreens. Audrey?
All set?
Yeah, that was my big one.
Okay. So I did have a question about the easement. I'm glad that it hasn't been finalized yet because, but they're 2 different parcels.
Yep.
And there's equipment and required items that the building, the new supermarket has to have in order to run, and it's on the other lot.
Yep.
So we're talking about whatever these are showing, the transformer and probably an air conditioning system and half of the dumpster enclosure.
Yep.
So reading just a little bit of easement that I see on here, that just talks about travel ways and walkways. So I would like to see the easement language include the mechanicals, the dumpster area, so that down the road, things happen, people die, somebody sells the lot, then, oh my God, you've got stuff on our lot. So is it fairly reasonable to clean that up with an easement?
That's exactly what needs to be done. It needs, the easement's going to have to include those functionable amendments to Hunters, including, like we talked on the site walk, the new transformer is upgraded electrical-wise, which they need to service Hunters and Walgreens. The placement, we don't have a lot of room, as you can tell there, so the placement has to be where we can place it. So it has to be done by easement. So we talked about that at the planning board, and that's a definite part of the reciprocal easement.
So, yeah, I don't see the planning board conditions, so I don't know if
Right.
that was actually a condition of their approval, but it will be of ours. So,
Yes.
Okay.
We talked about it, whether it was worded in the condition or not.
Okay.
He's going to have to do it legally anyway, as you say, because it's 2 separate entities. Yeah.
So my second one, and I want you to speak to this as an engineer, I think we've all been in Hunters many, many times. And what I see with the expansion out the parking lot side is once you exit the building, you're right in the travel lane. And in the old days, you had these little jogs. You could get out there, you could look, see who was coming, and decide when you're going to dart across. It's not like people go flying through there. Well, sometimes they do. But there just doesn't seem to be any leeway from getting out the door and being right in that travel lane.
Right. We talked about that through the meeting as well. And the ADA stuff and and the walkway in front of the building should take care of that whole lower side as far as entering it, Audrey. Same thing on the back side towards Walgreens. The area you're talking about is the middle parking spaces that are gonna, people walk right up the travel lanes just to get in there anyway. So they're gonna have cross-hatched and bollards, on the front of the building. We talked about how we're gonna access that. We widened it out more than what it was before because of the truck, the actual truck delivery traffic, which is supposed to be off hours, obviously. But as far as people walking in there, it's going to be similar to before where people walked across the travel lane. There isn't really a lot getting around with that. We talked about signage and bollards and cross-hatching and so forth, which is the best we can do in that instance, unless the Perrys have any comment on that any further than me. But we discussed that quite at length during the planning board process. I think the front of the building, the way we have it now, is more facing the parking lot than where Hunter's was before. Hunter's was more parallel with Main Street before, if you look at the existing footprint. So that entrance is more at an angle, which hopefully, like you said, no one's going to be going, fast across there. The only thing we can do, and we looked at some of the other entrances and other stores, and they kind of all have a traffic going in front where people are walking across to get into the entrance.
My recollection actually is back in the old store, that was actually a two-way, and I see an arrow, so that's now just one way?
Yes, that's one of the
I guess that's
things.
a big difference.
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
So that should help a little, but there still will be, we have to go one way there in that first parking area, so.
I'm all set. Sarah?
Yeah, I just have a quick question for Randy. I kind of brought it up when we were doing the site viewing. It's a non-conforming structure because it's not located within 15 feet of the street line, which would be on Glendon and South Main. And when I was looking at the drawing, I didn't see where I could easily determine how far back it is from South Main. It might be about 100 feet, and from Glendon, it looked like 125, is that?
Yeah, at least. It's at least 100 feet. And it says the front, I think that it's under other requirements in the ordinance, that somewhere along the line, they got some other requirements, and one of them was the street line, for the downtown district. It's a normal kind of thing. So I don't know if Glendon would count on that, but I'm sure would.
Well, apparently, the front is, in our ordinance, is defined as...
Street?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah, obviously, it's over 100 feet from both of them. So that was what originally determined, as you guys well know, making it a non-conforming structure. There was a lot of discussion about potentially moving it, given the 8% grade, and, we've been through this quite a bit. We went through various discussions on that. We looked at alternative designs. We got a lot of input from the public on that, and just felt that this was the best way to be able to rebuild it in kind. And there's a lot of other factors, reality engineering factors to get it to work, as you guys noticed with the grades and so forth out there.
And you are allowed to expand a non-conforming use up to, but no greater than 25%. And I see you have eked out 24.8%.
Yeah, John Thurston of the planning board kind of winked at me. I was like, John, yeah, we set it up that way. We tried, they would have liked to have been bigger, and obviously, as you guys know, it said we could extend and expend 25% into the setback, and there's no setbacks in this zone, which was one part of the confusion originally, And so since there's no setbacks, normally you'd be able to go as big as you want. But in this case, because it's a non-conforming structure with the street line requirement, we could only go the 25%. And that was determined right at the beginning, so the architects and builders have, did the inside of the building, and we made it the best we could, and we had to tweak little parts of it, including the entrance and so forth, to work with the grades, because the other thing we talked about out there was lowering the original floor elevation from Hunter's to try to get it to match that back parking lot, which was tough, So So when it's built, you're going to see, hopefully, a little bit better transition in the front. Whether that'll help with the vehicular traffic issue that Audrey's talking about, hopefully it will, because it won't be as steep right in the front. But we couldn't make it any lower because and then it wouldn't fit with the rest of it. So my recollection is it's about 1.5 feet lower than the original slab.
So, okay, yeah. Probably a little bit repetitive of what Sarah said, but so that, again, so the public knows that we're looking at two provisions of our ordinance. One is 175.92.1A3, building setback. The front wall of the principal building shall be located within 15 feet of the front property line. And that's a real quirky kind of ordinance. Somewhere along the line in the town here, one of the planners decided that it would be nice to have all the buildings in the village closer to the street. So we're stuck with that until somebody eliminates it.
I have to object. That's not quirky.
Well,
it's common.
That's a personal preference. So what we have is, that's what makes your application non-conforming.
That puts it into the 25%.
You could conform if you wanted to bring the building forward, but it's your option to plan and design the way you have. So that put you here, and then what we have to look at is the expansion for non-conforming structure, which is 175.43A1, structures not to be confused with use. We're looking at the building and the 25, up to 25%. Any non-conforming portion of a building or structure may expanded or extended by no more than 25% of the non-conforming building or structure, but with no further intrusion into the setback areas by special exception. The 25% expansion shall be a total cumulative expansion based on the lawfully existing non-conforming structure. And you meet that to a T.
Yeah, I think the question what you just read was expanding into the setback. And what caused the problem was there's no setbacks in the zone. And so sometimes stuff gets added, and like Audrey said, that is somewhat of a normal thing in a lot of downtown zones with being close to the street. We had a lot of factors where that didn't work in this case.
I just didn't want to see, the public and the board get confused with the use and the structure.
Yeah, no, it's
what
structure.
The use is only slightly applicable when we go through the eight requirements, but we don't get into the site plan. We talk about the 25 square feet expansion. So that's it for me.
Kate?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Chuck?
My only
Comments?
concern had been traffic and parking, and I think you've addressed it pretty well. The angled face is a continuous face, and I think that'll actually improve the sight line for both drivers and pedestrians.
Well, we're hoping, again, with the slope of the parking lot, everybody here, I think, and even in the room has used the parking lot, and it's not optimum when it comes to if we had better grades and stuff like that, but it functions, and given the parameters that we're up against, I think we did the best we could with it.
I think between that and there's a fairly wide sidewalk going all the way across that face, and making traffic in that area one way, that addresses my concern for that.
Yeah, and we're going to have to have signage, cross-hatching, and bollards in the front. It would still leave enough space for the access trucks. Yeah.
Do I remember hearing that you have met your number of parking spaces, or do you still exceed that?
Yeah, we exceeded it by a lot. We kept, what we tried to do is keep without losing any but on-site parking. So we meet the on-site parking. I can't remember the numbers, but let's say it was 70. We actually have a couple more because we're adding the 10 in the back. But then we get to add like 50 or 60 on-street per the regulations.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Kate, you had a question?
Quick question.
Right up close.
Okay. Just doubling back for a second, in terms of the traffic pattern and the fact that come out to the store and there's a travel lane, is there any consideration to painting something like a little crosswalk there to
Yeah,
increase
that's
the
exactly
safety?
what they're going to have to do.
Oh, they are, okay.
They have a crosshatch, and they're going to have bollards at the store end, and then wherever it ends.
Okay.
But there is going to be a pedestrian walkway to get in the store in the front from that middle set of parking spaces.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
May I ask a question? I'm just trying to understand a discrepancy in the paperwork that we have. Now, you're in the commercial, Hunters is the commercial district, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, you're talking about the planner review.
Well, we got a planner review. I just want to make sure I'm looking at this correctly.
No, there was
you referenced that Hunters is in the village residential district?
No,
and then
there's
you also referenced multifamily dwellings? You're not doing anything on top, right? I'm looking at your letter to us.
Yeah.
It's commercial, right?
It is commercial, yes.
Okay.
So if you're looking at the plan review, when it says zoning authority from special exceptions down doesn't apply except for the conditions.
So I forgot about that, but I think the last page of that is erroneous.
Okay.
Or the last page and a half.
Making sure I understood that correctly.
That must have been very confusing.
For me, yes.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is.
Yeah,
wasn't only
from the review, really the only focus is 17543 that's on the front page, and then the conditions on the second page.
Any other questions? Public comment. Anybody like to stand up and speak in favor of the project?
Good evening. My name is Wendy Rogers, and I'm actually an employee of Hunters for the past several years. I think we tend to forget that businesses that have been in this community as long as they have, 70 years on this one place, have done an outstanding job of promoting the youth and other organizations in this town. I don't think the same can be said for businesses that come in. They're here for a couple of years and they leave, okay? They have a tradition of supporting our youth, whether it's scouts or whether it's sports. They support our food pantry, which is one of the most important things we can support. They support adult organizations such as a Lions Club. They do special things at Thanksgiving and Christmas. We are open 364 days out of the year. During the COVID epidemic, we were there and we were working. And not only that, but we have outstanding people that serve as the managers of their department that went over and above to make sure those shelves were stocked. And I can attest that any other store that I went to was not as well stocked as this small community store right here in Wolfeboro. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason that we can do that is because we are independent. So we aren't chained into any particular company. We can go anywhere. And believe me, our manager just did that. I know that if I was sitting on the planning board or any board, the zoning, the selectmen, whatever, I would feel very honored to be part of keeping this tradition alive in this town. We don't just serve the year-round residents. We serve the summer people, we serve the vacationers, people that are just coming up here for a program for the weekend, as well as all the other communities around us. I know that we have people that come in the store that they actually ride their water jet skis up here and come shopping up here and then go back to Alton. So I think you should feel honored to have this part in our community. We are a very unique community, and I hope that we can keep that uniqueness about Wolfeboro. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would just say I appreciate your passion, and I don't think that's at all in dispute. I think we love Hunters. My 35-year-old daughter had her first summer job at Hunters. Sally hired her.
we have
I mean, there's a
actually-
long tradition of hiring people and being part of the community, so
actually
that's not
have-
at all in dispute.
People there right now that started out there in high school, and their kids are now working there in their high school,
Right.
ready to go off to college in the fall.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, board
Right up to the
members.
microphone, please.
Yes, good evening, board members and presenters. John Sandine from 6 Wyandotte Gate Lane. I certainly support hunters and think that it is a great asset to the community. I do want to ask for a clarification, and it is on the point that you're making. A decision about 25% sounds to me somewhat vague. You're going from a building that's 12,000 square feet plus or minus to a building that's 15,000 square feet. But what I want to know is, where will the front be? How far forward will the front go? How far forward will the west side go? How far back will the back side go? And perhaps that's on these charts, but I haven't seen them clearly to know where they are. So I'd just like to ask for that clarification.
I think we're working on getting all the material for applications up on the website as they come in and as they're noticed to the public, so people can go on the website, pull down whatever they need to look at, zoom in, look at site plans, and that's in the works. I think it's really important that people be able to see the material. Wolfeboro hasn't gotten that ready yet, but to your point, it would be good if people could, if they were interested, to see that information. Randy, do you want to talk about the percentage and how that's figured?
Can I have that back?
Could you please go to the microphone and,
So the board has a small version of the overlay, which is what they asked for. Planning board got to see this through the process. But generally, it's not much different than the original footprint, other than squaring it off. Most of the extra area is in the front, where all the jogs from the original building were, to give us more room. Again, some of this was pushed by the inside footprint. There's a lot of stuff that I didn't understand about the inside of it and how that functioned and where it needed to be and so forth. So that made a difference. Someone said that we didn't get out there until May, and that's true. We didn't get out to the part of the site that wasn't cleaned up, but we did get all around it. And we did have a lot of original information that we could use of what it looked like under there that was based on previous surveys. So we spent a lot of time. We knew right away what we were able to expand. So it was since March or beginning of April, they've been working on the inside to try to make sure what they needed for room. But generally, it's a squaring off. It's a little bit closer to the Union Street side by 1.5 feet. Obviously, with no setbacks, we could have went right up to the line, but to build it, this was as close as we could get to actually physically construct it. And then as far as the front, you can see, if you look at the drawing, you can see that most of the space is right in the front by the old entrance, a little bit on the sides, and a little bit in the rear that the chairman mentioned as far as being able to have new utilities that are adjacent to the School Street side. So 3,000 square feet, a little over 3,000 square feet, it doesn't take long to pick that up, to square it off like that. Obviously, the client would have liked to see more, but given the restraints we had all the way around, that was the best we could come up with.
Thank you.
And it worked with their interior design.
So to speak to the citizens' concern, you can sit down, thank you. There is specific ways to determine what the existing was in order to go 25%. They talk about overhangs and areas that are under roofs that aren't inside. It's not something that this board actually calculated or took a close look at. We're counting on staff and the engineer to have figured that appropriately. And, 25%, that's my house, but it's a big building, so I think for whatever reason, that's the number in the zoning. It can be, some places don't allow any expansion. Some places might allow some more, but that is our number. Did that answer your question suitably? Anybody else would like to speak in favor? Anybody would like to speak opposed? Would anybody like to just speak? Okay. Is there anything else you want to say before we close the public hearing?
I know there's a lot of questions in regards to this easement. I just wanted to point out that there is a pre-existing easement between the two parcels. So that is still legally binding at this point, but it will get cleaned up once the project starts.
So my concern was that, and all I saw in the easement was this little piece on the plan that talks about walkways and drive-throughs and access, and it didn't really mention those hard in-place items that the store requires in order to run.
Right.
And I would like to, should this be approved, I would like those to be a condition of the easement.
That is the plan, but there is something that does exist currently.
Yep, right.
Perfect.
Got it.
Thank you.
Board members, any questions before we close the public hearing? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. So I eked out, I think, 6 things that I think are factual for our findings of fact.
We're going to do that after. We have to go through this. We have to go through the 8 criteria. We either agree or disagree.
Okay. A lot of my facts came from that, so that's good. I got to find my page here somewhere.
Page 6.
Thank you.
6.
There we go. No. Well, we're going to do it as a group.
Yeah.
We'll go through 8 as a group. Okay.
This is the deliberation portion. We do the finding
Okay.
of facts after.
Number 1, site suitability, which includes adequate usable space, adequate access, and absence of environmental constraints. Does anybody have a comment about that, pro or con? If so, let us know.
Well, I think basically the site is constrained by its pre-existing use and location and ability to rebuild. So I think that with the plan that they presented, they have shown that they have taken advantage of every square inch that could be used to improve, and that they do meet the usable space, adequate access, they have the same access, and environmental constraints, they've really stepped it up for the wastewater disposal, so.
Stormwater.
Stormwater, I'm sorry, stormwater. So I say yes to number 1, site suitability.
Okay, I agree with that.
I agree.
I do as well.
Okay. Number 2, immediate neighborhood impact. That the proposal is not detrimental, injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to the abutting properties in particular and to the neighborhood in general. Typical impacts which extend beyond the proposed site include trip generation, noise and vibration, dust, glare from heat, smoke, fumes, gas, or odors, inappropriate hours of operation. I will point out that all the surrounding properties are also in the C1 district. It might be more of an issue if that backside was actually changed over to a residential district, but it's not. Even those residential houses are still in the C1 district.
So none of those typical impacts seem to apply.
Well, I think if they were at a large level, they would apply, but my feeling is that they actually are going to be less than they were before, given the improvement in the building systems that the new construction is going to provide. Sarah?
Yes, I have a similar comment to yours. When you come to trip generation and most of those things, they already have a pre-existing level before, but I think it was an old building with additions on the back. It had various and sundry mechanicals that had been, upgraded sporadically, I would imagine. So I think that smoke, fumes, gas, and odors, and some of these other things actually will be mitigated by having a new modern building, which would be advantageous to the neighborhood.
Yeah, it is an improvement, and the one thing that I think is notable is that they're not putting the mechanicals on the roof. They're putting them behind the building and fenced or screened when possible. So it is an improvement.
Well, and I remember from the planning board meetings, I don't think it was mentioned tonight, but I think they're doing additional landscaping, aren't they, that in general shield as you come down Main Street? There's some...
There's something about a tree.
I think there's some
in the
nicer landscaping.
Yeah, that's kind of in the site plan. The next one's number 5.
Okay.
I think you could address it there.
Number 3, there will be no undue nuisance or serious hazard to pedestrian or vehicle traffic, including the location and design of access ways and off-street parking. That was my concern that I brought up with Randy, and I think it's adequately spoken to, particularly because that is now a one-way direction for traffic going by the front door. I think that's going to make a huge difference.
Also, that's going to be better ADA access, and there's going to be a difference in the efficiency of the truck deliveries that's going to be improved, and no changes to the existing on-street parking. So,
Sarah?
I was going to note that there would be no changes to the curb cuts from the state, so that would not cause any increases in problems of nuisance or hazard. And I think that it was, at best, not a good scene when they'd have all these trucks right up there on the left-hand side of the building over on the Walmart side when they were trying to load and unload. And so if they're going to be moving that behind the building, I think that's a very good improvement, because you couldn't get through the traffic pattern as outlined on the ground because the trucks would be down into the parking area.
Chuck or Kate, comments that haven't been already said? Do you agree with what's been said?
I agree with what has already been said.
Availability of public services and facilities, that the following services and facilities are available and adequate to serve the needs of the use and the design, and this would be sewer, water, stormwater, drainage, which we've already highlighted as being a positive, fire protection, streets, parks, and schools. So some of those don't apply, but the ones that do, I feel are, particularly the stormwater, is much improved.
Yeah, the stormwater is high-tech. If you listen to the engineer, the best I could understand, it's quite the system. And they're going to also be making new connections to the municipal water and sewer lines. Those are all old lines. The electric lines are old. The old telephone poles are coming down. So it's generally overall 100% improvement as far as the public services and facilities.
Agreed? 5, appropriateness of site plan consideration shall be given to the following: parking, traffic, open space, fencing, landscaping, signage, commercial vehicles, lighting, impact. I guess some of these don't apply, but all of these do not have to necessarily apply to each project. These are a subgroup under a bigger line of appropriateness of site plan. It certainly is appropriate. It's in a place that has had the same use. The use is permitted use. The parking scheme is improved. The landscaping will be improved. Anything else?
No, the one that was a hot button item was lighting.
Yeah.
And so they have said they will do the shielded dark sky lighting provision.
For any new lighting.
For any new lighting.
And we'll have to work on the other lighting in another venue.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe something good will come of it.
Could be. Comments? All set? Number 6, immediate neighborhood integrity. The uses and established use patterns be weighed with the recent changing trends in the neighborhood. Same use. The trends in the neighborhood actually are trending more towards small commercial than residential. So I don't see any integrity problem with the same use in the same
Well,
location.
I think it's actually a large improvement. It's unfortunate the way it happened, but we're going to get a much better product in the end. So it's an improvement in the neighborhood's integrity.
And that would also, number 7, impact on property values. I think this
Yep.
is going to be much more appealing and might possibly affect property values, but I'm not a real estate person. You wonder how much more they can be affected. Never mind. 8, the proposed use or structure is consistent with the spirit of the ordinance and the intent of the master plan.
Yes.
Again, it's a permitted use. It's been there
It's a-
working successfully for a long time. It's already integrated into the master plan. Comments, additions?
I think if you look at the 8 points, they've done a good job of at least meeting the requirements and in most cases improving what was there before.
Okay.
Okay.
Findings of fact?
No?
Okay.
Let's
What
see.
next?
Wait a minute. Let me think for a minute, all right? Okay.
Which?
Yeah, finding of
Well,
facts.
but we have to list them specifically and
Okay,
exact
we're okay
wording.
with findings of fact.
Do the finding of fact before we
He says
vote.
we're okay with findings of fact.
We'll do findings. You're ready to do findings of fact?
Well, I'm glad there's an attorney sitting here. I think, well, all right, we could do the finding of facts, but I kind of think you make a motion to approve, conditionally approve, and the reason that we would approve, conditionally approve is because we find the following facts to be. So I think we do that after the motion to approve.
I think that's
Okay.
what we did last time.
No, we did it the other way based on what Suzanne said last time.
Well-
But I'm flexible and I'm willing to,
This is only the second time we've done a finding of facts, so
it sounds right to me.
this is the latest version
Right.
of what I understand to be, so.
So a motion,
I'm
a
gonna-
second, a findings of fact, and a vote?
Yep, so I would make a motion to approve, conditionally approve, because we're going to have some conditions, conditionally approve special exception for EAC LLC Sawyer, tax map 217-05-8060, 60 South Main Street, case number 05-SE23, 4, and I want to be specific on this. So it'll be for lot 217-58.
I think it's 59.
It's just one lot, right?
58.
The reason it's both is because technically the lot line adjustment hasn't been signed and recorded.
58.
Waiting for approvals.
Oh,
58.
Is that why?
Yeah.
And that confused me.
All right.
58 and 59.
Okay. And the special exception is for up to 25% expansion for non-conforming structure per section 175-43A, parentheses, original 12,553 square foot footprint to rebuild footprint of 15,668 square feet, which is 3,115 square feet or 24.8% enlargement per plan of June 20th, 2023, with the following conditions precedent. So this, I'm going to need, Audrey, I'm going to need you to follow with me. We go to Tavis's page, some of which I'm keeping, some of which I'm replacing, and some of which I'm rewording. So.
I have a condition
Well, I know,
specific to this. You want to put that at
No,
the end?
At the end.
Okay.
It gets further on down
All right.
to the more complicated ones. All right? So, number one is, I got the wrong one.
Just a minute, Suzanne, can you give this to Livia when we're done?
Yeah, Olivia, you got the memorandum? No, you've got one. So go to the back side of it. The back side of the memorandum, down at the bottom. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so number one, all federal, state, and local permits to be received, including but not limited to Town of Wolfeboro building permit approval. Number two, all of the documents submitted in the application package by applicant and any requirements imposed by other agencies are part of the approval unless otherwise stated, updated, revised, clarified in some manner, or superseded in full and part in the case of conflicting information between documents. The most recent document and this notice herein shall generally determine. And I would insert in there on number two, I would insert after it says documents submitted in the application package, insert date June 20th, 23 and July 20th, 23. Those are the latest ones. Number three. All right, let's see. Number three and number four replace with. All right, number three. That's okay. Number three, the application as submitted to the ZBA does not satisfy the submittal requirements for a building permit. And number four will be on the lines of what you were going to have. I think we'll have to talk about it. The applicant shall apply for and obtain final site plan approval from the planning board, and the approved site plan shall be recorded at CCRD, and applicant is responsible for payment of all recording fees.
So they already have their site plan approval. That's
No, they're going to, I think they're going to finalize it.
It's done.
It's done.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going back. No, okay. All right, so, let's see. Okay, so they've approved it, plan. Well, so then let me just leave in then, the application as submitted does not satisfy submittal building permit. That was number three. Number four would be that the approved site plan shall be recorded at the CCRD and be the responsibility of payment of all recording fees. That I won't put in the first part. Forget the first part about planning board approval.
Okay.
Just this.
Right.
And then, I'm losing track of the numbers here. I guess it would be 5. Should the final approval site plan not comply, well, it's been approved, but I think it's still applicable.
Yes, it is, and that's the last half of
Okay,
mine, so go ahead.
So see if we compare here. Should the final approval site plan not comply with plans, terms, or conditions that are the subject of this conditional approval, this conditional approval will not become final, and the applicant will be required to seek an amendment to this conditional approval to bring it into conformance with the final approved site plan,
That's the end.
period.
So once you go through that language, if anything changes in the site plan, we, the ZBA, want to review it again, whereas it might only go to the planning board if we do not have this condition. Does that make sense?
Since this is a little different, the planning board approved it conditionally on your approval.
Yeah.
So I would think once your approval, then theirs is finalized. The thing I want to mention real
Hopefully.
quick, though, they don't approve site plans at Carroll County. The lot line adjustment will get signed and approved. The site plan will get signed by the planning board. It just doesn't get recorded. There is a condition that the planning board had for an as-built survey. That can get recorded. But the site plan itself, that's too busy to get
It
recorded.
could run into something with the building department even.
Yeah, it gets signed and it gets put with the building
So-
department. Yeah.
This is just to say if there's any substantial change. It's not like if you just change the bike rack from here to there.
Okay, and then I have one. Are you done?
No, I'm going to leave you do the conditional, a condition
That's
of
what I'm doing,
easement.
yeah.
So that would probably be, I think, number 6.
Okay.
Go ahead.
An easement for all outside equipment and structures required to operate the retail store shall be submitted to the building department as a condition precedent to the building permit approval. Okay,
Okay, and you, all right? Keep going?
that's it.
No, I got another one.
Oh, yes.
This might be number 7, I'm losing track of
It
numbers.
is Summon.
Okay, I believe this would be the last one, would be subsequent. The special exception shall be valid if exercised within 2 years from the date of final approval or as further extended by the local ordinance or by the zoning board of adjustment for good cause. And that, I think, does it.
Okay, I'll make a second, just in case we want to discuss it.
Okay. We also have to, this is based on discussing and findings of fact that support the conditions and a vote that will happen. Does anybody want to discuss anything, or we move to findings of fact?
Findings of facts.
I got 6 of them here.
And I've got 5, maybe 6.
So why don't I read mine, because they're much shorter than yours.
I'm
And if they
usually-
line up with yours, you can scratch yours out. How's that?
Maybe.
Okay. 1, we found that this is a legally pre-existing non-conforming footprint. 2, it's a permitted use in C1. 3, the stormwater is improved. 4, the traffic flow, including for deliveries, is improved. 5, parking spaces exceed the required.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear 5.
Parking spaces have exceeded the required. And the bigger one in my mind is it is less non-conforming than it was before, meaning it's more conforming than it was before because it's closer to the street front, which is why it's not conforming.
Okay. All right, I've got some. A little different than yours. This application request for a special exception is consistent with the spirit of the ordinance, section 6, 175-43A1C, which allows for expansion, extension of lots with non-conforming structures to expand the non-conforming footprint up to 25%. And in this case, the rebuild footprint will be 24.8% enlargement. And it meets all the requirements of the special exception checklist. The application is for a rebuild, which will remain the same type of store grocery store operation and retain the same electric, water, and sewer connections. However, all will be new. Wait a minute.
Wouldn't it be better to say
Wait, I'm not
we'll have
done.
upgraded, not retain the same, because they aren't really retaining the same. They're upgrading them when they hook in.
What was the word you used?
Upgraded.
Yeah, and what were you questioning?
Well, you said they would retain the same electrical and all those, and
Well,
that's not
but they're
necessarily true.
upgrading them.
Well, and
All right.
that's why I think it should be upgraded, not the same.
Then, fine, okay.
Thank you.
All right, and they are improving the ADA access. Let's see, one other one. The totally new construction in this core of the C1 district is a marked improvement to the overall area, and that's all I have. A little bit different than yours.
She asked if I addressed the easements, and the answer is yes. Any other comments? All right. To the findings of fact? To the conditions? Yes. Please.
Well, the hearing is actually closed.
This is a clarifying question?
Reopen the hearing.
Yeah.
If we're going to reopen the hearing, I don't need to.
No.
It's just as it pertains to the easement, do we need a signed and recorded easement as a condition precedent to the building permit? Is that what you're requesting? Or is it just a draft?
What did she say? I didn't hear.
So the easement that I asked for, just a draft before the building permit or signed and recorded?
I put subsequent, so it
So
could
did
be
I.
Subsequently.
Subsequently
subsequent?
to,
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything before that one was precedent, and that one was subsequent.
so
Okay.
we
Because they're gonna
don't
need
need to
time
do
to
the
do it.
easement.
Sorry. Sorry for talking out of public session, but that was just a clarification.
Okay, so.
So is everybody prepared to
well,
take a vote?
I made a motion.
I know.
To approve conditionally, and we've done that,
Yep.
done the findings, so now we just take a vote.
All right.
Roll call.
Roll call. All in favor? Chuck?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye. Aye.
Audrey? Aye.
Suzanne, yes.
Yes.
All right. Been approved. Thank you. I thought you wanted to keep the findings of fact simple.
Well, when he said it's good to make them into sentences,
Who said that? I don't agree.
I can't hear you.
Did you say yes?
She said yes.
Okay.
You couldn't hear that?
I thought you were going there.
That would be weird.
Well, it was just very short.
All right. I can't hear.
Sylvia, it's such a mess. Plus, this is on. They need some.
That's on. The last minutes were screwed up?
We're good.
Are we on?
Oh, you mean that whole big list from about 6 different, yes.
These microphones are on.
Can we, are we?
No, I don't know what you're doing. I got one other thing.
Okay, hang on. Good point. Okay, if we could continue our meeting for some, doing some business here, please.
Okay.
So no, we're not adjourned yet, thank you. I wanted to bring up the August 7th meeting. We don't have a case, but I would love to do work. So I'm hoping that we can make a determination to come on August 7th.
I can't hear you. You have to speak louder because of the noise.
Okay, well, I'll wait till the call is cleared then. So I don't have a gavel.
Excuse me,
I get
if you could
pound.
talk out in the hall, please. We need to continue our meeting. Thank you.
Okay, is everybody, most people willing to come on the next meeting date of August 7th and do some rules of procedure, work on looking at the minutes, clearing up the minutes, talking about the minutes the way they've been coming? What hours?
I can't on the 7th.
Okay. 6 to 8, so you would prefer to come earlier, or you?
6 to 8.
You'd like to come 6 to 8?
Yeah, or earlier.
What date?
That's next Monday. That's our standing meeting time, but we don't have a case.
I can come. It's not ideal, but here's my thought. I mean, I honestly feel like if Suzanne's not there, well, I do. I do feel like if you're not there, it's like one step forward and two steps back. You know,
Well,
whatever
especially
we
with
do,
the rules
she's
of
going to
procedure.
say.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever we say, you're going to come back and say, but what about this and what about this?
Yeah,
And
I'll pick it apart.
well, so I kind of feel like going through that without you present is double work.
I don't know.
Honestly.
Between the Harriman Hill and this, you probably.
Picking
You've
up
had to put in a lot of
Between the
time.
Harriman Hill and this, it's been a lot. And doing the findings of facts, and Livia having to do all these minutes and catch up and everything, it's a lot. But I really couldn't be here on the 7th anyway, but I need a break. But I might be able to help you in the minutes that are outstanding. I think we could take care of those if the board would agree. That minutes taken before Livia took them, they remain in draft.
I agree.
Because they're either incomplete, wrong, or
Impossible to fix.
practically impossible to correct. There's so much going on in them. So it would be the minutes, I believe, that are listed here, because we took care of a couple of sets.
Olivia, when did you start? April, May, or June? Okay, thank you.
So yeah, it would be all of these. So I would move the minutes of 11:14, 1:9, 3:6, 4:20, and 5:1 all remain in draft form.
But what does that mean? They're never,
They're
ever?
They're just there.
We
They
just
are what they
acknowledge
are.
them
We
as
never
we don't-
have to approve any minutes ever anyway.
Okay.
And on the flip of that, we could go back, if we could substantiate it, and approve some minutes from 2 years ago or 3 years ago, if we found a fatal flaw.
Do the video recordings stay available forever?
Don't I wish? I have asked for this repeatedly and repeatedly. No, not
It
necessarily. They don't belong to the town of Wolfeboro.
And it's the minutes that prevail.
If you go
But
to
if we
court,
had good recordings, you could go back and work with your minutes.
Livia is supposed to get a brand-new tape recorder. I don't know if you've been in to see Jim, but he's supposed to have one for you. You have to go pick it up. He ordered it.
Yeah, and those recordings, we could ask
keep
the town
those.
administration to archive, so that those would always be available.
So I made a motion about the minutes. If that's acceptable, could I get a second?
So some of us weren't here during some of those times.
Well, so be it.
Okay,
We're just
I-
putting our faith in.
yeah.
Well, then abstain. Abstain.
Well, I was here during some of them. So I'm going to abstain during the ones I wasn't here, and I'll vote that they're.
Well, I
the
did
rest-
them in bulk.
Yeah, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
I mean, do I get
there's
to vote?
4 of us.
This time.
Chuck wasn't on the board during 3 of those, so. Well, okay. So it sounds like, I mean, I tend to agree with you that without
Blabbermouth.
Suzanne being here, we're going to go over the same material twice, unfortunately. So how about, can we look at scheduling a regular second meeting? We already did that, though. So we're scheduled for August, what, 20-something?
I'm gone.
August 21?
I'm gone.
You're
Till-
gone?
I'm gone till September 5th. It's the only time we go away.
Okay. So, we can work on the rules of procedure and not vote on them, and you can come back and add any, you're not Suzanne, so your comments will be
No, but I've probably
directed to the
I've probably
point.
worked on these longer than anybody else,
Yeah,
but-
that's
except for Suzanne.
As
but
long
that's
as.
okay. Yeah.
So I would like to plan on meeting that day, which is. We're adding a second day of the month for a work session, and you said it was the 21st, Tavis? Correct. The 21st.
Yeah.
And we could come at 6, is okay with me, because we don't have hearings. It's just a work session.
6. Okay, I get that.
At 6 PM?
So Livia, if you would
6
make
to
a
8.
note that I will be excused from that meeting, I'll let everybody know now.
Yep.
I didn't, after all that confusion, I can't, my hearing is gone.
Right.
I'm
Yep.
sorry.
Audrey,
I'm sorry. What?
I'd ask Olivia to note that I will be excused from that
Okay.
meeting because I won't be around to call.
Sure. And I will mention it during the meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so it's going to be at 6 to 8. I would like to do it in the library. And
Yes,
people who
we can
want
hear
to,
each other.
people who want to come can also come to the library. And if we end up having too many, we'll sit out in the anteroom of the library.
And no other business, just that.
No, downstairs, I'm sorry. I call it the old library, in the planning.
old library.
Yeah, in the planning office.
Oh, not the,
And where?
The planning office.
So you don't mean the library? You
No,
mean
I meant the
annex
old library.
conference room.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Wolfeboro Library.
no.
Oh, this
The old
The one with the fireplace.
The annex.
Yes,
library.
the
in
annex.
Town building.
Right.
Yes.
And no other business on the agenda unless it's dire emergency.
No business. No applications.
Okay.
No anything.
And September's meeting will be
The regular first Monday?
Labor Day?
Okay, so it will be the,
So are you putting it on top of the Conservation Commission
For
meeting?
some reason, I
or
have
the
September
18th?
18th down as our ZBA
That's
meeting.
because I keep lobbying not to have it.
well, that's one reason that we added a second meeting, was so that on those 4 Mondays during the year, we don't have to squabble about what the day is going to be. However, the second Monday would be the 18th, and we wouldn't be accepting applications. So if there are any applications, they would be on the 11th, right?
I'm pulling up your calendar, hold on.
Sorry, what?
Where's
I'm
our,
pulling up your calendar, hold on. I have
Yeah,
to see
I
what's
think-
already listed.
it's on a previous determined calendar.
So the regular September meeting would be 9/11. So your second meeting would be the 25th, unless you wanted to do it on the 18th.
I had always wanted to do that the same
Every
week
other.
of the month.
Like third and first week?
Third actual Monday is the 25th of September.
Yes, we want you here.
Well, that's a day that we
That's a regular meeting.
may have an application, so we have to meet as long as we have 3.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. And then also on the 18th, unless we decide not to.
You want it on the 18th?
So we're the 11th and the 18th.
Yep.
Shall we do
As I
October?
said when we set this up, we can always not do the second one if we don't feel like we want to do a work session the week after we've just heard a case.
So then it's 10/2 and 10/16?
You're ahead of me. I don't know.
No.
So we can decide that a little bit later.
We
With all
can.
due respect, Audrey, you would be bumping ZBA on 2 Conservation Commission meetings in a row.
Which ones?
In October, the 2nd and the 23rd, not the 16th, because the Conservation Commission gets bumped to the 16th because the 9th is a holiday. And I already would have had
The
to have,
9th and the 16th.
right.
So your conservation gets moved because the 9th is a holiday.
Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples' Day, whatever.
Well,
And I'm forced to become a non-member practically of the Conservation Commission because no one on the ZBA will honor the fact that that second Monday is not the ZBA's meeting night.
Well, what Audrey's been saying is the 1st and 3rd, so that would be October 2nd and the 16th, not the 9th.
And I'm saying screw October 3rd one. You're not listening.
We entertain a motion to adjourn and take up some of these dates as we meet, like in August?
Yes, we can always entertain a motion to adjourn.
Except I won't be here at that meeting in August, Kate.
Okay. So,
You know,
so
we wanna have
my
extra
issue,
meetings.
Sarah, my issue is that there might be other people who have conflicts because
No,
of
my
the...
issue isn't a personal issue. My issue is rudeness to other boards. And historically, until you got on this board, except for Robin, we never used to conflict with any other board's meeting.
Well, you said that before,
I know, because,
and I
Nobody
understand that
listens.
you feel that way.
yes, I know.
What if we had another member on another board that also was moving around because of a holiday, and then we were
I would
moving
try to
around that?
respect their date.
Okay, I guess I just don't agree with that. But we can take a
I
vote.
can't help it
because
if you,
we can take a vote. It's not just my decision
Are we
on that.
wedded to Monday nights because of the
pretty
way
much
other
because,
meetings fall?
yes, because of when the meeting halls are available.
Are we wedded to a certain time? I mean, we are for a public meeting, correct? I mean, like, what time does the conservation, it would be very hard on you to attend
Most
two
meetings
but-
either are 6, 6:30, or possibly 7.
Could we ever change our meeting time? Which would be hard, but
Well, I don't think
So
for
that you-
public
for the
meetings
public.
would
No.
be wise.
It would be hard to do that. It's just not imposing on somebody else's predetermined date. And I think it's very selfish of you, Audrey.
But they're not
Because these dates
predetermined.
existed long before you
They're
came
moving
here.
because of the holiday, which is
The
what we
holidays
all
are
have
not
to
new,
do.
Audrey. The
Are all
holidays have
new?
already been there. They're not new. And they were
Okay,
always worked
so
around before.
if somebody would like to make a motion,
I'll make a motion that in October, we meet on the 2nd, our regular time, and on the 23rd.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. And Chuck, which one?
I don't know. I think I can make it. That's kind of far out, but I pencil me in.
so October is 2nd and 23rd, sounds like?
I think so.
So Audrey, you like to have consistent first and third. The problem is that throws us into a wrench with holidays. I mean, I think we might have to just not be consistent sometimes. But on the other hand, Sarah, you do belong to 2 boards.
I
which
belong to
means
3 boards.
3 boards, which means that
And all those boards have assigned days long before you guys ever hit a public meeting. So
they
these-
haven't had this date for a long,
These dates, a specific day of the month was determined years ago.
Yeah.
okay.
Well, did
Yeah.
you make a motion to adjourn?
I asked if you could.
Second.
I mean,
All in
Did we
favor?
go with the second?
Aye.
yes.
Do we go with the second and